Welcome to the first part of a series of videos that are going to show you how we generate this simple 3D model, export from AutoCAD to 3D Studio, add materials, lights, and ultimately we're going to create a panosphere for viewing on a Samsung VR headset. So as I say, it's an AutoCAD modeling exercise, and I'm going to show you kind of three versions of the model. The one you can see on screen at the moment is probably the most sophisticated one to model, where quite a lot of attention is going into creating the glazing system, and I'll show you how we can kind of create this as a component and then build it up. We'll also do this as an all solids model in two kind of levels of detail, one fairly crude and one that's a bit more sophisticated. Okay, the advantage of the solids model is that if you wanted to create a 3D print of the building, then the solids will export as an STL file which you can 3D print from quite easily. So I'm just going to shade this so you can see what it looks like with some colour on it. So I'll use a shaded with edges mode, and you see it's fairly simple form. Looking underneath there, you can see the kind of cavities in the wall. And what I'll do is I'll turn off this glass layer that's in the windows, because I want to just describe the glazing here in a bit more detail. I think another layer went off there at the same time. Let's put that back on inside. Okay, so you can see here it's kind of made up of three layers. We've got the green on the outside. This is kind of like the colour of the frame on the outside. Then the pale blue is to represent the kind of gasket that you have in a cavity glass construction. So this is a shiny stainless steel kind of strip that separates the panes of glass. And then the orange is the inner frame of this glazing screen system. Okay, so we're going to take this kind of step by step and break it up into kind of bite-sized pieces so we can show you how you do this in more detail. So I'm just going to close this finished file. Okay, I'm going to open the kind of startup file. So the file's called test space start. Okay, so there's just 2D information here, no 3D at all. There's a lot of layers already set up to use, so we can split this up into various materials, and it makes assigning the materials in 3D Studio much easier. Okay, now we're going to be doing some modeling work, so we want to be in a modeling workspace. At the moment we're in the drafting and annotation workspace, so I'm not seeing any modeling tools at all. So this would be the first thing you do, is change your workspace. So use the workspace switcher to change from drafting and annotation to 3D modeling. Okay, I'm going to park my command prompt so I can see things on screen a bit easier. I don't have too much clutter. I want to switch dynamic mode off, so I'm DYN mode, return, and set that to 0. Okay, your machine will probably be sitting at 3 at the moment. Change it to 0 and you won't get too much on-screen clutter. Okay, I'm going to reduce these number of panels because I need to see my layers panel expanded, and I also need to see my coordinates panel expanded. So let's just get rid of this section plane 1. I don't need view. Okay, I don't need selection. Okay, let's get rid of the other view one. There's two view ones, and if I get rid of groups, I should expand the layers one so we can use that. Okay, now when you're working in 3D, we need to see it in some kind of 3D representation. We can't work from the top down, it wouldn't be very safe. So you can either use the navigation bar over here, we've got the orbit command, or you can hold the Shift key and right click your mouse. Sorry, Shift and middle click of your mouse. So hold the middle mouse button down as well as the Shift key, and you can spin the model round. Okay. Now what we're going to do is pick the section up here and place it on the model so we can use it for referencing our heights. Okay, so we've got the plan here, doorway, glazing, just so it orientates yourself. And this side of the plan is referred to as the front in 3D terms. This is the right of the drawing, this is the left, and this is the back. Okay, so I'm going to copy this section to the clipboard. So use Shift, Control and C at the same time. Shift, Control and C gives you copy base point. So we look for an object snap. I'm looking for the end point here, and then grab everything, press enter, then change the coordinate system to front. So when we paste the object back in, it should be off the ground, it should be vertical. So change to the front coordinate system. X is still running the same way, but Y is now running upwards. Do Shift, Control and V, and the section is now vertical in relation to the plan, and we can place it in position in the back corner of the space. Okay, so you can see here that the glazing at the front is going to be on the high side of the building, and the roof slopes down, and we get a more compact height at the back. Okay, now I don't need to see this 2D stuff anymore, so I'm going to delete that, and we can refer to this one. I'm going to keep this as a block. I'm not going to explode it. Be handier if it stays. I won't accidentally pick up any small lines later on. Okay, so escape there just to get ready. Okay, now the UCS icon here is very helpful. It shows me which way I'm facing in relation to the model, but it kind of sits right in the middle of my work area. So I'm going to tell this to get out of the way. So we have a command called UCS icon. Press enter. I want no origin. Okay, I'm also going to make this a bit chunkier, so I'm going to bring back that command, press enter. I want to see the properties of the UCS icon. Okay, we could change the color of it if we wanted to. We can make the icon a bit bigger, and you can make its line width a bit thicker, so it beefs it up, a bit easier to see on the screen captures. Okay, I'm also going to change the color of my object snaps, because I find the green is going to be a bit tricky to see on all this pale blue and green. So if I right click my object snaps button, object snap settings, and we're looking for the options for the object snaps, and you can see here that I can make the icon a bit bigger, and I can change its color. So instead of green, I'm going to use bright yellow so we can see it. So apply and close, and apply and OK. OK again. And now if I try a line, you can see I can see the marker far bigger. Okay, now when you're working in 3D, you don't need too many object snaps. We'll probably get away with just endpoint for the most of this exercise. So I'm going to switch off endpoint and midpoint, and we'll just keep it like that. Okay, so what we're going to do first is deal with the windows here. I'm going to do this in a kind of probably the most laborious method, but it gives me great flexibility and control. So we're going to make a small portion of this as a kind of a stretchable object. Okay, so I want to insert a couple of shapes, and we're going to drop them on the end of here. Firstly, I'm going to put my coordinate system back the way it was. So instead of front, change back to world. You can also do that by doing UCS and return twice. that resets it back to normal. If you get lost in the 3D view at any point, if you're not sure which way you're facing, set the coordinate system back to world and then do plan and return twice. That resets the view. Okay, and remember, shift and middle mouse to get back to a 3D view. Okay, so I want to insert a small portion of drawing. So I use the insert ribbon, first command on the insert ribbon, more options. I want to browse to outside the drawing, and I've got this little drawing here called Window Frame 2D, and open. I want to control where it goes. I don't want to change its scale or rotation. So I'll click OK, and I'm going to place it on the end of this line, just so I'm not placing it randomly in 3D space. Okay, I want to copy that now. So CP, return, pick the object, return. Your base point can be anywhere, and I've got ortho active, so I'm just dragging upwards. You can see a +Z next to my cursor, and I want to go upwards just by 300 millimeters. So 300, return. Return to finish the command. Okay, so these are directly above each other. Okay, as long as ortho was on, they should be directly above each other. If you're not sure, check. Do plan and return twice. We should only see one version of the block because they're directly above each other. Okay, shift and middle mouse just to twist over again. Okay, I want to use the layers that this is made up of, so I'm going to explode both of them. So X, return. Pick both of the items and return. Let's go back to the home ribbon, and we'll start at the back of the shape first. So I want to get the object's layer information. So I use make current. Pick one of the orange lines, and then we're going to use 3D faces to join the top shape to the bottom shape. So the command shortens to 3F and return. Pick 1, 2, 3, 4. In your command prompt, it's saying specify third point, so we can keep the command going. I'm going to turn ortho off just because it feels a bit restrictive. Okay, so my third point is here, then go back up to a fourth point. I can keep going. Another third point, a fourth point. Return to finish. Let's do 2 strips on this side. So we make current, pick a pale blue line, 3F, return, pick 1, 2, 3, 4, return twice. Oh, pick the wrong layer there, so make current. I must have just picked the green by accident, that's better. Okay, if you've got something that's stuck on the wrong layer, you can use the match properties command, which shortens to MA, return. Pick the blue object. Let's try that again. Match properties, let's get a bit closer. Pick the blue object and change. Okay, so let's practice using 3D faces. So 3F, return, pick 1, 2, 3, 4, return to finish. Make current, the green layer now, and we can do the same as we did with the orange if we start at the right place. So it's 3F, return. I'm going to start at the bottom and then go straight up to the top. So pick 2, pick 3, pick 4. Keep going. Pick 3, pick 4, pick 3, pick 4. Return to finish. the two objects that we used to help us draw this aren't needed anymore, so I can erase them. They're a bit tricky to select, so be careful and use a blue selection window, and it should only pick the objects that are completely inside it. Press delete to remove them. Do the same at the bottom, so there's no command active. Blue selection, delete, they're gone. We don't want to clutter the drawing with lots of lines unnecessarily. Okay, we now want to place this on the model. I need to use this for the horizontal parts as well as the vertical, so I'll take a copy of it across to the model. Now, I also don't want to disturb the 2D information, so what I'll do is lock the layers. I could go down the layers list and lock each one, but if you've got lots of layers to do, consider using the keyboard instead. So let's just presume there was more layers that started with the number 2 than you can see there. If I type it in, so it's -LA, lets you type in a command, so the minus forces it to not use a dialog box. Okay, return. I want to lock, so I look for the lock option, and then it says which layers do you want to lock. I want to lock everything that starts with a number 2, so that would be 2 star. Return twice and you should see the 2D layers get dull. Okay, this item was a block. Notice it doesn't dim because the layer that it was inserted in was layer 0, so we've not told it to lock layer 0. So let's just explode this and you should see the layers dim down. So X, return, pick the block and return. Okay, so all that stuff's safe now. We can't disturb it by accident. Okay, so as I said, we're going to copy this and place it onto the model and then use the section to gauge the heights. So it's copy, so it's CP, return, grab the items and return. Always keep an eye on the number that it finds. Check, you've drawn these 3D faces, you know how many there should be. There's 3 at the back, 2 in the middle, 3 at the front. So that's 3 plus 2 plus 3 is 8. Okay, a base point, I'm going to use this position, and then as a destination point I'm using my middle mouse button to drag myself over to the model and place it carefully in that position. Okay, now I need to judge the height. How do I get this right the way up to the top so I've got the full height piece of framing? So I'll use the stretch command. So that shortens to the letter S and return. Grab the top of the construction with a green crossing window. Must be a green one. Press return. You don't get a second chance to pick. Base point here at the back. Destination point, I'm using my middle mouse button again. I'm going to drag it up to here, right to the top. Okay, now you can see because of the sloping roof, there's a gap. There will be a triangular gap. How do we get these extended up? And what I want to show you is how you do it accurately. Okay, so let's look at the drawing from the front side of the object. So we change to the front coordinate system and then do plan and return twice. Okay, this gives us the front view of the building, and then zoom in on this area. Okay, now I don't know what the angle is, and I don't know what these heights are. We don't need to. We can use a polyline to create a guideline. So I use the polyline command, you can see it here, or type in PL and return. From endpoint, but it needs to be vertical, so put ortho on and drag it through the slope of the roof. Return twice so you can draw another one. from endpoint up, return to finish, return to bring back the command. This one can be more accurate. We can go from endpoint to endpoint. Okay, now these two need to be chopped off. We use the slope of the roof to chop off the height of that line. So trim, TR, return. Even though this is locked, we can still use it for trimming. Pick the line and return, and then chop off the two parts of the line. Okay, to use these as guidelines would be a bit tricky if we left them in position here. So we're just going to move them to the side into space so they're free from any other object. So it's move, it's M, return, pick 1, 2, 3, return. Base point can be anywhere, just drag them to the side and we'll keep them there for later use again. Okay, escape. And then we use the stretch command, but in a much cleverer way. So we're going to stretch each junction one at a time by the respective height that it needs to move by. So it's S, return, use a green selection window to capture the vertices that need to move. Press return, you can't pick any more. Base point, bottom of line, destination point, top of line. That's exactly touching the green line now. Return to bring back the command, capture the next vertex, return, use the second line along, bottom end, top end. Return to bring back the command, capture this vertex, return, using the longest line now, bottom end to top end. Now the reason we used polylines is that they can't change their Z coordinate. So this line is at the same Z coordinate at this end as it is at this end. The Y coordinate changes, but the Z coordinate doesn't. So if we list this line, you can see what I mean. LIST, return, pick the line and return. So you can see that the Z coordinate isn't changing. Neither is X, because it's a vertical line there. Okay, polylines have that characteristic which makes them very useful to help you set out positions in 3D space. Okay, I said we'd use these again, so we'll keep them there. And let's go back to a 3D view. Okay, and we can copy this component across to the other positions. So CP, return, grab everything there. I don't want to take these three, so I'll hold shift and take those out. Okay, so we're still dealing with 8 objects. So look at the numbers here. So 71 were found originally, 60 were on a locked layer, so that left 11. I then took another 3 out of that left 8. So that's still the right number. Okay, press enter because we don't want to copy anything else. And then we're looking for a convenient base point and destination point. So I think this point would be just right. And we copy this over to the next frame position and left click to drop one behind. Return to finish. So that's the uprights done. What about, so these are the mullions, the vertical parts. The transoms are the horizontal bits. So we go back, this time we want to rotate the object down onto the ground again. So I would use the right or the left UCS for this. So I'll skew the right one, this would be probably the most obvious one. So we're now able to rotate things in this direction. So rotations always happen around the Z axis. So it's RO, return, grab the component and return. Pick a position on the object for your rotation point, it makes more sense. I've got ortho on, but it feels a little bit awkward trying to adjust, so I'm going to use the type in the angle -90, return. Okay, now let's move this into position this time. We don't want to leave it behind, so it's M, return, grab the component and return, base point, destination point. Object snaps always overrule ortho. Okay, then we can stretch this to suit the opening. So it's S, return, use a green crossing window and return, base point, destination point. Now this 2D information here was very carefully drawn, so the gaps for the framing here are exactly the same. So I can copy this component from one gap through to the next. So CP, return, grab the component and return. Be careful with your base point, and destination point is the corresponding position in the other two gaps. Return to finish. We can now distribute these vertically up the construction. So copy, CP, return, pick right the way across here, and let's quickly do the maths. Remember there's 8 objects in each one, so there should be 24 in total. It says it's found 84, but 60 were on a locked layer. 84 minus 60 leaves us our 24. Press enter, because we don't want to copy anything else. And your base point and destination are a bit trickier here, so we're using the 2D section. So look carefully. I'm going to use this as the base point, and then I go up the section looking for the ends of the dull yellow line. Okay, where we've got the light shelf feature coming in, just leave one of our transoms there, and then we've got 3 more above the light shelf, but the top one is going to be a different shape, and that's why we left these here, so that we can stretch these to suit the shape. Okay, we want to widen the transom at this position so it covers the end of the light shelf. So we would go to the front coordinate system, because we want to view and work in the elevation. So change to the front coordinate system and then do plan and return twice. Zoom in close at the end of the light shelf. Okay, now let's use the same methodology that we used above. Let's draw a polyline that gives us the amount we need to stretch it by. So it's from endpoint to endpoint. Return. So there's a polyline sitting on top of the other objects there. Let's move it out of the way. So M, return, pick there and return, base point, destination. Okay, so we stretch this junction using this as the guideline. So it's S, return, grab the top of the mullion with a crossing window, return, base point, destination. Okay, let's slide up and we'll deal with the top issue again. So we've got a gap here that's running backwards into the drawing. So we just do exactly the same as we did to get this shape. So it's S, return, be a little bit more careful with your selection. So let's pick one, return, base point, destination. Return to use the command again, pick, pick, return, use the middle line, endpoint to endpoint. Return to use the command again, grab the vertex we want to change, return, endpoint to endpoint. These have done their job, they were very useful, they can be deleted. Let's twist around and see what we've got. We've left a little line here that can also go. Let's shade this. So instead of 2D wireframe, go to shaded with edges. And we've got a very tidy glazing system. So we could have a different color material on the inside, the middle, and the outside. So it looks more detailed and more interesting. The advantage of it being done with using 3D faces is that if we wanted to change the shape, we could. We could adjust the positions of the components and create different patterns as necessary. So undo that, put it back the way it was. Okay, so that's the end of the first component. That's the trickiest part, actually. The next video we should complete the exterior construction. So we'll stop this one just now and resume with another video.